we don't know.
But he said he was in a car.
He was either
Oh, I thought he was like in a car.
no, I was right.
It's terrifying.
Like literally.
Yeah, well, Bella is not very happy. She's going to get like this. When she goes to college, too.
Yeah.
So
That's literally the second.
my son's going to try to go to see all of them. And he's like,
Ellie, I don't know if you care, but the back of your head's going to be in the entire meeting. It's up to you.
You know, I don't like that.
I'm just trying. That was not the solution I was thinking of, but okay. Sorry about that.
But no, thank you. Because
I was going to tell you to keep the whispering down. We see it.
that's impossible.
yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I'm really doing something.
Think about it.
Tuesday. Do not feel safe. Center Square. I shouldn't have thought Center Square. I used to live in right on the park.
Yeah.
Just don't believe it.
Right.
It's totally juicy.
Yeah, no, that's I mean, I've had people years ago when I was I had guys say, oh,
Yes.
I'd be like, oh, good.
Are you like witness interviewing? I'm threatening a murder. I'm not sure. Right.
It's like, you know, so I'm like, oh, good if you had it. But again, that's really no.
Where do you go?
Sorry, yes.
Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance being led by Isaiah Stabile.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our March 2nd ordinary meeting of the Village of Ballston Board of Trustees. Just to check, did we put a microphone on the stand? Cool. We're good to go then. And we are going to begin tonight with our public hearing related to Revitalize Ballston Spa, the Brownfield Opportunity Area draft plan approval. Opening it at, in literally seconds I can do that actually because we're a little faster than normal. 7:01 p.m. now. There we go. Anything I need to do besides, do you want to give a quick synopsis, Bernadette, on it?
Yeah, just what this is, the Revitalize Ballston Spa, it's a study that was done with the committee's guidance to look at properties that are either possible brownfields or other properties that are underutilized and kind of look at reasons why that may be and what those potential sites could be that would be beneficial to the village. To get them back on, you know, being productive and bringing in revenue for the village, but also having nice facilities and businesses here. So there was a lot of public engagement. I've seen many of the faces that attended the public workshops. So this isn't normally part of the process that you have to have a public hearing, but we certainly would love people's opinions. So this is why we're doing it this way. And that's the gist of it. Once we do approve this, this does make the village more competitive for grants, economic development grants, which is great. And it just really opens up some doors for, you know, the village, but also property owners that would like to do something and qualify for some tax incentives that New York State provides. So that's the gist of it. We'd love to hear people's comments on it.
And that's what we're about to do. So if you have any comments, we'll ask you to raise your hand in a second. If you're on Zoom, now would be the time to raise your hand for your 5 minutes maximum per person for public comment in this public hearing. Anybody in the, Liz, go ahead.
Liz Cormos, 89 Hyde. I did read through the plan and actually found it very good. I think they did a nice job. Particularly they Labella followed, and the committee followed the comp plan pretty much to a T. My only comment was that they did not work with the developer of Tannery Commons, either the previous one or the current one. And I think they would have added quite a bit of knowledge of the local community. It's better than it was before, but it didn't have the input of the BOA committee. My one comment really is, I think it's a terrific plan. It makes a lot of good suggestions, particularly form an implementation committee, do a pro-housing submittal, New York Main Street application, New York Forward. Actually, I think the village could go for the 10 million, but that's my opinion. CRTC funding, the BOA pre-development funds, and they recommended a true capital improvement plan. My only concern is that going to happen? I mean, it's always lovely to have recommendations in a plan, and then are we going to see any of that implemented, or is this plan going to sit on a shelf? Thank you.
Yes. Make sure the green light is on that, Liz, if you can.
Whoa, this is not very steady.
Anybody else? Kristen?
Do you want to take a look at that stand first?
Well, I asked for Kristen, but okay. Kristen has morphed into Marilyn.
She gave me permission to advance.
Okay.
No problem. Marilyn Stevenson, 45 West High Street. I also want to echo what Liz said. I found the plan to be very interesting and followed along the framework of the comprehensive plan, so that's kudos to the committee. The one thing that I would just say overall, and I know I've said this to Bernadette through the whole process, this project was like one of the best kept secrets in the village. I really thought the group could have done more after the first initial comments to integrate the revitalization planning process onto the village's communication platform. That never truly happened. In finding out that this topic was on the agenda tonight, it's neither listed on the village's social media sites, nor is it listed under the village's website, and specifically the news headliners. So I think you would have had more people here tonight singing its praises if more people knew that it was actually going to be finalized tonight. There was also some confusion as to why there was a need for a public hearing, and I'm assuming there's another public hearing that's going to happen at some point in the future, but there is some confusion about that because of the fact that so many people, including 2 committee members that I spoke to, knew nothing about what was happening here tonight. But overall, the plan looks great. The one thing I would ask is that moving forward, knowing that the architectural character of the village is what drives a lot of the economy here, please consider having a presentation from the SHPO on the model preservation ordinance. I think going forward, that's the direction the village needs to consider. Having that presentation and learning more about the economic opportunities that that ordinance and the structure would bring to the village. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Kristen?
Hi everyone, Kristen Icolucci, 24 Chapman Street. I'm glad to see this BOA process moving forward, and thank you to the committee for making that happen. In the presentation last week on the tannery application, we learned that they are pursuing certain federal tax credits for workforce housing in return for income limitations on the future residents. So we also heard from residents that they would like to see alterations on the application, both to make it smaller and to increase its curb appeal. Considering the BOA process provides additional tax incentives, it seems that the village could get a development that is more in line with what village residents want and the comprehensive plan's goals if this property is eligible for BOA. So I'm a little unclear after reading through the plan how or if this property would qualify, and maybe can the board or you, Trustee Vende, since you're the liaison, maybe clarify how the tannery would fit into the BOA process? Thank you.
And Mike, I thought your hand was up.
Thank you. Good evening, Mike Icolucci, 3 Encore Drive. I also agree. The study, which was exhaustive, seemed to me to be very good and well written. A couple of questions. From what I read, so there are a total of approximately 193 acres that seem to be considered for this plan. And that comprises 89 parcels. Of the 89 parcels, is the report saying 24 are owned by the village? That's kind of what I surmised, but I just wanted to confirm that or find out what the correct number is. Also, with respect to this study and the recommendations as to particular types of buildings, just want to, again, hear confirmation that these are recommendations at this point. It's not cemented, that there would be some sort of medical facility in front of Ocean State Job Lot, that there would be cottage-style homes in the old nursing care facility area. So again, are these just recommendations for further consideration? And I just want to make sure I understand that.
I'll be after.
Okay. With respect to that skilled nursing facility site, which is just under 16 acres, again out of 193 acres total, the report included a quote saying the site owner was not a willing participant in the planning process. So I'm just curious, what, if anything, can the committee or the board do to pursue something with that particular property owner? Thank you.
Anybody else? Seeing no hands, seeing nothing on Zoom, we will have a motion to close the public hearing at 7:10 p.m.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Dubuque,
Second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Where
We want
should I
to-
briefly,
you-
later?
Yeah, why don't we put it into
Okay.
the resolution discussion, and
Okay.
you can answer those, I think, there. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the March 9th, 2026 meeting be approved?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Price Bush?
Second.
Trustee Dunkelbarger, discussion?
Yes. So, sorry to be that person. We have motion L. I'm listed twice under the tabling. And we're looking back through our notes. We think it was Bernadette and Mary. I'm not
On the
quite sure.
tabling, I can't
Oh, yeah,
remember.
table
Yeah.
needs me.
That was it?
Yep.
Okay. That it?
Yeah.
Do you accept, Mary, you made the motion, Paul, do you, second, you accept the change? So now the vote is on the minutes with amendments, or as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Before we get to public comment on agenda items only, we have 3 walk-ons tonight, believe it or not, and let me run through them for everybody. There's a, let's see, Stanko and Sons quote here for a water heater for Eagle Mat Lee Firehouse for $2,500. They need this installation ASAP because they have the pancake breakfast coming up this weekend and want to make sure that they are going to be ready for that. So that will be coming up. We'll call that the next letter. I don't have it right in front of me, but that'll be the next letter after the last one that's down currently. The LaBerge Group is putting forward a quote for grant services related to water system upgrades. And that will be the second one after the letters we have. And finally, we have a memorandum of agreement and employment of an intern from BOCES, Elijah Montake. Sorry if I'm screwing up his name here, from Galway. We had retained our last intern, so we're 1 for 1 so far on our BOCES interns in terms of staying around for long-term employment with us. So we'll be seeking the approval of that engagement with him and allowing me to sign this memorandum of agreement. So those are the 3 walk-ons for tonight. And now would be the time that I would ask for public comment on agenda items only. So you'll have 3 minutes. If you'd like to speak on an agenda item only, please raise your hand. We will recognize you. Now again, if you're on Zoom, this will be the time to raise your hand on Zoom if you have any public comments for 3 minutes. Anybody in the crowd? Seeing none, except for Anna Stanko. Nobody's there. Nobody's home.
Anna Stanko, 32 Kent Street. I guess I would like to make a comment on the budget. What is that? Scheduling a public hearing. I don't like tax increases, okay? I've worked for the county for almost 38 years now, in charge of our budget, internal budget. For 7 years going on, our budget has decreased 5% every year. We have to cut budgets. We are not given everything we request. I see that almost everything in here, 26, 27 requested, is the same as the tentative. So I guess my question to the board would be is, does everybody in every department just come to you and say, this is what we want, and you say, yes, it's yours? Because that's not how real life works. I can't go out and buy a new car if I don't have the money to pay for it. Again, budgets are cut. My budget in my department was cut. I cut my budget. I was told I had to cut my budget by 5%. That means less paper, less markers, less everything. You got to work within your budget. And I believe that this village board can work together and come up with a plan to not raise village taxes. Thank you.
Okay. We'll talk more about that later. Anybody else? Here?
Marius, Penny's High Street. I wanted to talk about, the taxes and tax increase also, that I saw. There's a tax credit extension for 125 Bath Street, and going back to the Brownfield BOA project, they're going to get tax credits for that. At the last meeting, they also talked about doing, I think it was called AIM, applying for that tax credit. There's also, they could apply for the pilot tax credit. So this is a national group getting lots of tax credits, and won't be paying their fair share of taxes, especially towards the school district, the pilot tax, if they apply for that, which a lot of those groups of people, those national groups do, won't be paying their share of taxes towards the school district per student. They could have, a couple hundred students living in that apartment, which then goes back down on us. In here, we have a motion I. You're looking at a real property tax levy excess. But then we're looking for a tax credit extension for people to build, not a local community member, to build a 168-unit apartment complex. I think that is concerning due to all the fiscal things that are happening in the world, and how prices for utilities and groceries and gas is going up. I think we need to look at that and be aware of what we're offering other companies, and how that's impacting our local people and our local taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, we will move on to motions. We have a record, I believe, tonight for consent agenda. It's 11 items, I believe, unless I misnumbered them. No, I think it's right for once. Does anybody want to remove any of the consent agenda items? Hearing none, can I get a motion that the consent agenda be approved?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa?
I'll second.
Trustee Price-Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I need a motion that the Committee on the Arts be allowed to hang 22 banners, got to turn the camera, 22 banners in the village during the month of April, which is Poetry Month, to be put up and taken down at the discretion of DPW.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Dubuque.
I'll second.
Trustee Fandesa, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that David Brown be moved from active interior status to active fire police at Eagle Mat Lee Fire Company number 1?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa.
Second.
Trustee Price-Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion approving the proposal by New Wave Energy for a fixed rate for 1 year at 11.8 cents per kilowatt hour to be applied to all village commercial accounts, estimating cost savings for $14,000 annually. And this motion authorizes the mayor to execute the proposal after attorney review.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Price-Bush.
Second.
Trustee Dunkelbarger, discussion. A couple of points that I think you had made that you wanted to get clarified.
And he clarified them, so we're going to work on it in the next few days.
You got it. But in the meantime, this will authorize us to stay consistent, at least with this, after the attorney reviews it. If anybody has any issues with that, let me know. Otherwise, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I have to actually add something to this one. Carla had reminded me earlier. Can I get a motion accepting Lawrence Youngblood's resignation of his positions as Deputy Treasurer, Deputy Clerk, and Deputy Registrar of Vital Statistics as of 3/13/2026?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa?
I'll second.
Trustee Price-Bush, discussion. Unfortunately, we couldn't retain him. We wish Lawrence well. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion that the library be approved to accept Kristen Hyman's resignation of her position as part-time library clerk and transfer to a provisional appointment as part-time library assistant? Terms of this appointment are $18 per hour before June 1st, 2026, and then raised to $18.50 per hour as of June 1st, 2026, which is the new fiscal year, with a cap of 19.5 hours worked per week.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Price-Bush.
Second.
Trustee Dunkelbarger, discussion. This was actually requested by the library board and Andrea as well after they discussed it with her, and this will put Kristen into kind of a more specialized role, especially for youth programming from my understanding, so wish her well with that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let me hold off on the resolutions here for a second. Let me just get through the completion of regular motions. Can I get a motion allowing Park and Tree Board to host an Arbor Day tree planting in Kelly Park on Saturday, April 25th, 2026 from 10 to 12 a.m. Trees are being donated by the Cornell Cooperative Extension.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Dubuque.
I'll second.
Trustee Price-Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion scheduling a public hearing for Monday, April 13th, 2026 at 7:01 p.m. during the regular Board of Trustees meeting of the Village of Ballston Spa. Consider proposed local law number 2 of 2026 authorizing the Village of Ballston Spa. Consider adopting a budget for fiscal year 2026-2027 that requires a real property tax levy in excess of the tax levy limit established by General Municipal Law, Section 3-C.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa.
I'll second.
Trustee Price-Bush, discussion. This is basically to enable us at all to do it, to have the public hearing before April 15th, which is the rule by the state for budget schedule. So this means nothing beyond the fact we're setting the public hearing for that date, and we'll vote most likely at that meeting after the public hearing whether or not to approve it or deny it. The budget itself probably will not be approved, I would guess, if I had to sit here guessing, until April 27th, which is before the May 1st deadline set by the state. Anything I'm missing on that?
Just that the tax cap override is the same one that you did last year, and that it doesn't require a tax cap override. It doesn't adopt a budget, it doesn't adopt a tax cap override. It just says you have the authority to do it if you need to. And you have to do that every year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let me move on now to, we'll label it as J for the purposes of this. Can I get a motion to approve the new water heater work to be performed by Stanko & Sons LLC at Eagle Mat Lee Fire Company's firehouse for the total of $2,500.
Make the motion.
Trustee Fondainsa.
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion approving the proposal by LaBerge Group related to water infrastructure grants
I'll make the
and
motion.
authorizing the mayor to execute any related paperwork? Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll make the motion.
Trustee
I'll
Fondainsa.
second.
Trustee Dubuque, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion approving the hiring of intern Elijah Montake, Montaque for those purposes? Yeah, that's a tough one.
So moved.
And authorizing the mayor to execute any agreements with BOCES related to his internship.
So moved.
Last thing I got to say is that we're asking for excess hours beyond his credit hours. He will be compensated at the seasonal 1 level for a DPW employee. There we go. Now, Paul.
So moved.
I'll second.
Trustee Dunkelbarger and Trustee Fondainsa. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Carla, I think I'm handing it over to you for resolution set 1 here related to classifying a type 1 action for the BOA plan and issuing negative declaration, et cetera. Go ahead.
Okay, I think Bernadette and I are probably tag team a little bit on this. I'll do the seeker part, and you can do the answer the questions part, and then we can do the resolution part.
All right.
Teamwork. So what all of you have before you, the seeker, because this is a land use plan, it's not a law, but because it's a land use plan, you have to do seeker. It's an action. It's a type 1 action, which is why you have the entire type 1 long form in front of you. The Labella filled this all out. I reviewed it. I worked with Labella. We did some revisions on it. So part 1 is all filled out, talks about the plan. Part 2 is really where you have to go through, just like we always do. It's the negative declaration portion. So if you can go, I'm just trying to get to my part 2 here.
You got it.
Yes, sorry, it's long. So you want to go through all of the questions on here? I'm happy to do so. But Labella has gone through and has marked no on all of these, as it really your action is the adoption of the plan, not any groundwork. So would you like me to go through all of these and indicate yes or no, or would you like to adopt how Labella has it presented?
I think as presented would be okay with me.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So then if you go to your part 3, for the determination of significance, is it this board's determination that it will not have a significant environmental impact?
I agree with that.
Yep. Great.
Okay, so you have then a resolution establishing lead agency, classifying as a type 1 action, and issuing a negative declaration. Do you want me to read the entire resolution?
No, I don't.
What do you want me to do?
The whereases.
You mean the
Therefore,
resolve?
it's resolved, yeah.
Okay. Is that okay with the rest of the board?
Yes.
Not the whereases, I should have said. I'm sorry.
Right, no, I'm with you. All right, now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Ballston Spa hereby declares itself lead agency for the purposes of seeker review of the adoption of the revitalized V-Spa BOA plan pursuant to 6 NICR 617.6B. And be it further resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby classifies the adoption of the revitalized V-Spa BOA plan as a type 1 action pursuant to 6 MICRR 617.4B1 as a land use plan affecting an area greater than 25 acres. And be it further resolved that the Village Board of Trustees as lead agency has reviewed and considered the FEAF parts 1, 2, and 3, and hereby determines that the adoption of the revitalized V-Spa BOA plan will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts, and that preparation of an environmental impact statement is not required pursuant to 6 MICRR 617.7, and be it further resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes and directs the village clerk to execute and file the negative declaration with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and provide notice of this determination in the environmental notice bulletin.
I need a motion for the adoption of this resolution.
Make a motion.
Trustee Afandenza,
Second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. Roll call vote necessary here. Take it away.
Yes.
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 And Rebecca, I'll work with you on the environmental notice bulletin.
That is it for that.
That's it for that.
G, we got a resolution. Okay, not some G.
Just to touch on some of the questions.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Let's see. Hopefully I took good enough notes. Regarding the specific sites, like whether they're recommendations or like you have to do this. For some folks, we've been in easy discussion with them and they were interested in what the BOA program potentially could provide them. So there is for some properties more interest in maybe pursuing that because at the end of the day, we have information that this is something desirable, this is something that people want to see, and there's, whether it be the comp plan or other things that we have done, the economic development plan, it's supported by different studies that the village has done. As far as the infirmary site, I mean, I give LaBella a lot of credit. They have tried. They tried, and did not receive feedback from, or never got a call back from the people selling the property. So we took what was recommended in the comp plan as this is what could be done. Ultimately, I think there is potential to do other things there, but we just, to be conservative and also just be thoughtful, took comp plan recommendations. Let's see. Tannery, I think because there was something already in place, you know, we focused on a lot of the other sites that haven't had attention as far as like recommendations. Ocean State Job Lot, that was just a recommendation of potential. They're actually interested in possibly creating like a pad site that's like big parking lot. I don't think we need a giant parking lot there when we can potentially have something bring in money for them as property owners and also for our village.
Until Ted's on Good Friday. That might be the one day.
Yeah, but I think they looked at that. But, you know, that's an opportunity in that sort of corridor that we're calling the gateway of the village to get maybe another business there, something useful. So it's a mix of, we had conversations that were great and people were really interested to be engaged in it, to we tried, we fell back on the comp plan. So I think that was that. There are a mixture of properties, both, you know, village and non-village properties owned by privately owned folks, that, you know, it could be anything like there used to be a garage there and there's oil and those are kind of the cases. There's a number of sites identified by the state. So we do have record of that. That is available at the state. I feel like I'm missing one other one. Implementation, that's exactly why there should be a committee, you know, and the folks that sat on the BOA committee are very interested in being engaged, helping the village, you know, you guys can focus on this, you can work on this. So I know that when Mayor Woolbright applied for it in the first place for the village to get some study funds, the intention was for the village to be able to really take advantage of this and take advantage of the program. I think in New York State, I think there's only 60 communities, something around that have this BOA designation. It really does elevate a community like ours for grants. And, you know, let's set New York forward. It's like a check, you know, so I think it's a really great step. They had a great committee, people that are just really passionate from all different backgrounds. So, and I think there were really, really great folks who got engaged. And I think everybody that has actually been a part of the public hearings or public workshops and public hearing tonight. So I hope that we can move forward with this and see some good things come from it.
Let's move to G, the resolution authorizing the vehicle acceptance statement and final payment, which includes the vacuum truck, the street sweeper, the 2 dump trucks, the loader, and the pickup truck with plow. This is in order to finalize the USDA loan and grant proceeds for payment of the $1.1 million loan and $135,000 grant from USDA.
You all have in front of you the USDA required resolution. Again, all it does is it accepts the vehicles Even the dump truck that we don't have yet.
Correct. That
So we
should
talked about
soon.
that, yep. And it authorizes the disbursement of the loan and grant proceeds. This loan is closing the same time as the fire truck, the Sutton Humper is closing. And I think we just need this and one other thing, and we're gonna get everything signed, and it'll close on April 17th. So with that, how would you like me to do? You wanna do the resolve part again?
I will read the resolve that the board hereby authorizes final disbursement of the loan and grant proceeds for payment thereof, and it is further resolved that the village has not yet received the second 2024 international dump truck, but authorizes disbursement of the loan and grant proceeds as if the dump truck had been received, and it is further resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute all such documents required to give full effect to this resolution. Can I get a motion adopting this resolution?
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Dubuque.
Oh.
I'm sorry, Trustee Price Bush. You're sounding alike suddenly. I don't know what's happening here. Price Bush.
I'll second.
There you go. I called you into existence there on the second. And now, unless there's discussion to be had, roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much for that. And I think that takes care of everything but one thing that I'm being told I have to hold on for.
The BOA plan has to be adopted. And we're trying to find the resolution that they sent us.
Who sent
No, today? No.
Right, 19th. Sorry.
No.
You want me to-
Just open it.
Hold, please. We will be with you in a moment.
The state likes its documents.
I noticed.
And I'm hot-spotted to my phone, so.
Okay, resolution of the Village Board of the Village of
We got it.
Balston Spa
No.
approving and adopting the revitalized B-Spot plan and authorizing publication of a public notice of intent to apply for BOA designation. I will read for you, if this helps, the now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees of the Village of Balston Spa hereby adopts revitalized B-Spot BOA plan, and be it further resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby declares its intent to apply to the New York State Department of State for BOA designation, and be it further resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village clerk to publish a public notice of the village's intent to apply to the New York State Secretary of State for BOA designation. I need a motion to adopt that resolution. Trustee Fondanza. Trustee Price Bush, discussion. Now another roll call.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
5-0 adopted. And that is it?
Yeah.
Final answer? Here we go. Mayor's announcements. I'll have a lot more to talk about coming in new business. So let me just say thank you to everybody that was a part of the great Easter egg hunt yesterday. Mary, I didn't realize you were there on Saturday night and Sunday helping out with that one. So thank you for that. The events task force did a tremendous job. Thanks to all of them and to everybody that attended and volunteered. We do appreciate everybody that was there yesterday. The first hour was mayhem in a good way, and great to see on a Sunday. I think we've done it on Saturday in the past. I feel like over the years, but even on a Sunday, no stopping the crowd coming in for that. So it was a great experience. Thanks again to everybody for that. Treasurer's report. I just want to share some bad news that our treasurer, Melissa McCann, her mom passed away on Friday evening, and so we want to send our condolences to Melissa and her family. And if we could, just a quick moment of silence here to, send some good thoughts her way. Her mom was just reached 88 years old actually last week and passed away right after her birthday, unfortunately. Thank you for that. Budget-wise, she was assisting me through the process. I'll have more on that in a little bit. And utilities are late right now, but still being accepted payment-wise. with late charges for water and sewer. So if you still owe, please come on in and take care of that as well. Liaison reports, Bernadette, go ahead.
Just a couple quick ones from the BSBPA. Well, they have their annual meeting, and we wish them success. We wish to be there, but we have to be here, but that's a good thing. Not saying I'm missing cake right now.
But you are.
It's really good cake. But want to congratulate them for all they do for the community, for not only the businesses, but our actual residents and community. We have some things coming up to celebrate in, as far as businesses. April 17th at 5 p.m., Back Barn Brewery. That is the new partnered brewery with Mike Schaefer. I had the opportunity to enjoy some on Friday night and sang some karaoke badly.
I don't think that's...
No, I did actually. I butchered a song and made up for it in the other two. But anyway, I encourage people to stop by. Mike's a great business owner. Him and Bona, they just have been such a staple in our community, and we're really grateful that they could figure out a new partner. So come to celebrate them. And then on the 24th at 10 a.m., the BSNB is going to be celebrating the renovation of the original site of the business, the bank. So people are welcome to come to that. So that's it for me. To keep it light.
There you go. Mary.
I'm sorry if this is long. The library has a lot going on. Sandra Holland, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, is a Medicare coach and educator, and she's going to be presenting Medicare Basics and Beyond on Thursday, March 26th at 6:30 p.m. She's going to cover topics such as Medicare overview, Part A, Part B, and drug coverage with questions and answers at the end. It seems like a lot of people would appreciate getting some information. Tuesday, March 31st from 6:30 until 7:30, they're going to be having several of the 25 authors of the grief experience on hand to share their stories and discussion and what inspired the book that they all wrote as a collaborative. They're going to go over tools to help navigate the grieving process, and books will be available. Authors will present after the event to connect with attendees. And the fundraiser is still going on upstairs, 9 different baskets, wonderful themes, which will hit a little bit on everybody's interests. The library board held their annual election of officers on March 16th. Patty Tesh will remain as treasurer, Lori Acey remains as secretary, Andy Mannion remains as president. They're doing a great job. Ballston area seniors, a reminder on their upcoming trips: July 8th, Lake George Steamship Mardi Gras Cruise, August 9th, Woodstock Playhouse, October 6th, Gavin's Oktoberfest, and just as a reminder, trips leave from the pool entrance at the Milton Community Center. 2026 membership dues must be paid. The trips are, the signups are first come, first served basis, and you can contact the Ballston area seniors for more detailed information. And we've got Earl, the president, back there if anyone wants to chat with them. You're welcome.
How do I get invited to the Mardi Gras cruise? That sounds like a time right there.
You just gotta be a member.
Yeah, I'm not old enough.
And Ray was at the front door yesterday, and he estimates that over 600 people came through.
Sounds about right. Yep.
Good turnout.
Charlene?
All right, the Committee on the Arts will hold its monthly meeting Wednesday, April 8th at 7 p.m. right here in the library. Open mic night is returning to Back Barn Brewing on Friday, April 3rd at 5:30. The Committee on the Arts would also like everyone to know about the Random Acts of Poetry in Ballston Spa this April. This month-long event will feature poetry throughout the village in many different forms. There will be a poetry reading and book signing featuring several authors here in the library at 6:30 on April 7th. Several poets will be participating in a poetry performance reading on Sunday, April 12th, 7 p.m. at Brookside Museum. To see the full listing of events and get your poem fix, make sure to visit the Committee on the Arts Facebook page or visit the village event calendar. All right, moving on to the Historic District Commission. They have a tentative meeting scheduled for April 16th at 7 p.m. at 90 East High Street. Just watch the village calendar, though, just in case that changes. And finally, Park and Tree will meet Tuesday, April 21st at 7 p.m. at the Cornell Cooperative Conference Room. Stay tuned for more information as they will also be hosting an Arbor Day tree planting event on Saturday, April 25th at 10 a.m. at Kelly Park. That's it.
Paul?
In addition to the usual duties, the DPW department replaced the catch basin on Chester Street. They have to still complete a crossover pipe to the other side of the street and another catch basin there. The pipe is caved in. They replaced the radiator on the generator at the Rollins Street Treatment Plant, replaced exterior lighting at the Westwind Hills Pump House, and installed 2 new street lights on Front Street that have been missing for several years. Believe it or not, they've begun transitioning DPW trucks from winter operations to summer mode, albeit cautiously due to potential weather instability.
Don't know what you mean.
Yeah. And they conducted a cleanup at the pump house on Victory Circle to potentially looking at that place to store some Christmas decorations. And they're actively out conducting the water meter readings for the 390 residents or payers who did not read their own meters.
Twice. Yeah, that's the 390 was a 2 misser number, which is what caused us concern.
It's a very labor-intensive process. They've done about 100, and I think they said that they can only allocate people for about 6 hours a day to go do it.
Yep. A little bit more about.
Please read your meters.
Well,
send in the cards.
That and a little bit more in the executive summary
and then,
budget too. Go ahead.
As the Planning and Zoning Board liaison, I'd just like to say thank you to all who came up to the joint meeting of the Planning Board and Zoning Board last Thursday night. Very informative session.
I got the presentation actually late today. I'm going to be posting it or having it posted and Facebooking and all that stuff with it tomorrow. So folks, look out for that. I had asked for it today, and we got it late today from Jeremy Wilkening. So appreciate him quickly turning that around on the request. And I know people had wanted to see it, so we will get that up tomorrow. Let me go reverse order here. Only I had it open and I lost it, I think. Let me see if I can get it back up here. There we go. I want to read regarding what the tax credit extension for 125 Bath Street is here. Abby Burke, who is with Assemblywoman Walsh's office, provided this to me after we had produced the agenda on Friday, and I had sent it to the board, but I wanted to help inform everybody. Let me give you the explanation first, and I'll give you the resolution that she's seeking ultimately. The property at 125 Bath Street was granted brownfield remediation and redevelopment tax credits in 2019, which are set to expire this year. These credits run with the property regardless of ownership and would provide financial assistance for the continued cleanup work of the site. Property owner James Bedoin has approached the village and state legislators about this and is seeking assistance to get the credits extended due to extenuating circumstances, including delays caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, workforce shortages, etc. The resolution that would be sought is as follows. A resolution authorizing the Village of Ballston Spa's state legislators to introduce legislation in relation to extending the duration of brownfield redevelopment and remediation tax credits to the property at 125 Bath Street as requested by property owner James Bedoin to run with the property until the end date of the extension. So I heard, I think, some things that were misunderstood from earlier public comments. I just want to clarify. These credits run with the land for current cleanup of the land, regardless of who will control the property at the end of the day. They have a deadline, and it would possibly make cleanup or redevelopment of the site inviable if not done or carried forward because of the extreme costs and what's on the line. What makes it even viable for any participant on that property, my understanding is the ability to get these credits to offset a lot of these expenses that are extraordinary expenses when compared to properties of like size or like kind that are not brownfields or that don't require cleanup to that extent. Having said that, I know Mary also talked with Abby yesterday. I don't know if she has more. If you'd like to talk to Bernadette, go right ahead.
Just to clarify, it sounded like somebody thought it was from the village. It is state tax credits. It is something that, you know, we're not necessarily giving them, but we're saying we would like the legislation to move forward. We really need to move forward because the window to do local legislation is closing very quickly. So if we do this, we really do need to act on it. So.
Mary, anything you gleaned from it yesterday in your discussion with Abby? Any confusion you had?
No, I know she said that, there were fallen through the cracks and they were kind of pointing fingers at, who should have, noticed that it hadn't been extended already. It's very beneficial to the land and to anybody who wants to revitalize that area that it gets extended.
Nothing else? Okay, so I read you the resolution. I will do it one more time, then ask for the motion to adopt it, and then we will do the 90-second public comment period, which is mandated by the rules of procedure since it is a fresh motion. The resolution read, a resolution authorizing the Village of Ballston Spa's state legislators to introduce legislation in relation to extending the duration of brownfield redevelopment and remediation tax credits for the property at 125 Bath Street, as requested by property owner James Bedoin, to run with the property until the end date of the extension. Can I get a motion to adopt that resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa. Trustee Price-Bush. Discussion follows. Anybody that may have something to say for 90 seconds in the crowd or on Zoom, I see a hand. Marilyn, go ahead. Get 90 seconds for these standalones.
Marilyn Stevenson, 45 West High Street. So the question I have for the trustees is, what is the length of the extension? And I thought the developers had already told us, or at least previously, that the property had already been remediated because whatever was deemed hazardous there had been removed and a fresh coating of fill had been put on that. And if you can clarify that, I think that would be helpful for me. Thank you.
When the last version of this was going along, they also told us about the precautions that the state forces them to perform to do any work on the site, including basically watch sites for any truck or any vehicle that is on the current dirt of that site as they dig out and replace that dirt. Essentially, they have to have extraordinary watch stations. There was a question that was asked last week at the presentation that more or less asked about what would be done to not cross-contaminate property off of that site, and that is one of the extreme circumstances they have to take, and this is not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. Also, removal of any fill on that site requires essentially the Superfund treatment of that type of material. So there are extraordinary costs related to that, and that was from their previous discussion of it, and it kind of jogged my memory of it last week when I heard that question asked on Thursday. Liz, I think your hand is up.
It's almost 89.5. I also like to know how long the extension is. And just to be clear, the tax credits that you're talking about are the ones for remediation. There are other tax credits that the developer will be applying for that are based on serving low-income populations. So it's a different, group of money that they get at least two different tax credits. Also, I wonder if they wouldn't also qualify for some of the grants to take the building down. So I know there are restore grants, and I don't know if those are available to private properties, but that would assist in, because they're planning.
Is it longer?
They only need 7, but when I talk.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's how the law is written.
Anybody else? Yes, Karen.
Karen Marius, 10 East High Street. As a property owner who has done cleanup for contaminated soil, it is a big process. As a small business owner, we had to take it on over 20 years ago to clean up our site, and we made sure we did that with no tax credits. So I don't understand why I understand COVID happened, but there's been a lot of construction, a lot of things that have happened. I know many businesses locally have still been working, and I don't understand why none of this has been taken care of and we're continuing this extension. It's kind of concerning that you're gonna go for another 10 years. I understand it's a big thing. I just don't understand why nothing has happened if they want to continue an extension. It just is not a good look for the village.
I'm not sure.
It starts from the property owner.
It's not a village thing.
That seek that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you call it? Programming? Like,
Right.
you have the tax credits.
It's not a village sponsored project at all. It's just the property owner requests the credits. There was an agreement in 2008 with DEC and the property owner with respect to the site, and this was part of that, and this is basically an extension.
2008, really?
June 23rd, 2008.
It's been a long time.
Well, no, Karen, that is before he owned it. That was Angelica's ownership
And then
at that time.
there's a lot of things that were going on there. So there's a lot that's going on, but again, the only thing that the village board is voting on is basically an email from the mayor saying, we are in support of this. That's all it says. We didn't draft the law. We don't have a right to draft the law. It's like, so I just want everybody to know that this is just, the property owner is asking, and Assemblywoman Walsh's office is asking the village for support for them to present this legislation.
Where is typo? What if that 2008 is a typo?
It's not a typo.
Angelica asked for it?
Because it was entered into prior to June 23rd, 2008. Then it received a certificate of completion on or before December 31st, 2017. And then it's been moving forward.
Yeah, because Angelica was open until 2010. That's why I'm curious on that date. But anyway.
I'm reading the law.
Yeah. At the end of the day, this is a process that does start with the property owner. They work with the legislature. Ideally, it would have been nice to have a conversation, but nonetheless, it's part of the process that New York State requires that they have to seek it as a law, and it would need a nod from the municipality that that property is in.
Anybody else for 9 seconds? Seeing none, seeing none, seeing none. Okay. Discussion.
I think it's been discussed.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, before the meeting, I believe the clerk handed out paper copies of the tentative budget, as they're over there if you did not get one, but I believe everybody has one in front of them. And also I handed out a copy of the executive summary that I got through today because the capital plan portion has become a lot thicker than I started doing this back in 2023, I think was my first budget officially at that time. So it's definitely a larger document now to put together. We'll let everybody kind of cycle through there, but so at this point, what I do is just kind of call it to your attention, things, tell you the process that we went through, and then kind of hand it over to you to figure out if you want a workshop to discuss further. Tonight's not really the night to do the deep dive. I want you to get the verbose budget from me later this week, where I give you kind of all the backup materials and everything else for it. But I think Anna had brought up the fact that, for instance, the requested versus the tentative number is always the same. The approach we take, and that Melissa has been taking with me since she's come on board as treasurer, is that we literally sit down, because our department heads, budgeting is not their specialty. It's never been, it's never going to be, and that's fine. We understand that, and that's why we take a lot of extra time to work with them to look at their budget as of January 31st, 2026 in this case, the current fiscal year, and see how they're doing. What have you bought? What haven't you bought? What are you going to buy in the next few months? And are you asking for some of those same things? Well, if there was already budgeted, go buy it type of scenario. You should have done it already. We don't want to re-tax people for the same thing twice, because that's essentially what you're doing in that scenario. So we literally work with them side by side in developing their department budget to make sure that they have what they need, and talk on an ongoing basis with them about what they do absolutely need or don't need and everything else. And so we literally develop their budgets with them. So the idea of requested versus tentative, DPW wanted a $350,000 dump truck. It's not here, okay? It's not on there. It could be if we can get some good cost savings with respect to the buildings, and I'll talk about that in a second. Maybe we'll have some money to spread out in that way, because there is a dump truck that's going to need a pretty large repair if we're going to retain it. But for now, I told them, you know, that's a big ask, and not probably for this year with a $4.5 million problem sitting in front of us. So that's what the concept is. Also, the idea that we're not living within our means, I take issue with that greatly, and here's why. We actually did balance the budget without capital plan money. Every dollar that is in excess of the tax cap is getting applied, including the $40,000 that we did for this fiscal year that will be put into a capital planning fund. That $40,000 plus the additional $60,000. So the 2 years worth of excess over the tax cap is getting pushed now in total, the 40 plus the 60,000 proposed. So another 100,000 goes into the reserve if we do it this way in 2027. So at that point, we'll have $150,000 saved up. The goal ultimately, because we have $12.5 million of spending to do with only $5 million in our fund balance, more or less, is to make up the difference over X number of years of debt service that we'll be facing for that excess. And in doing the math and assuming reasonable interest rates, which is, you know, something that you can't rely on right now, over the next 25 years especially, we are in a position where we need about $275,000 to $300,000 a year of excess money that we can always push over to capital reserve planning. So that's what the goal is, to essentially, for the 5 to 6 years, increase that pad of money so that we reach a point where we have $275,000 to $300,000 each year to push toward the capital plan for those years to cover that excess. Because like I said, assuming no grants, which is, you know, an assumption we don't want to assume, but for now, for budgetary reasons, assume no grants, that $12.5 million minus, you know, some portion of our fund balance and some of the other things we're getting from the towns in terms of our fire contracts, et cetera, we need to kind of make up that gap or create that gap. So in a way that does not negatively affect our daily operations or annual operations of the village. So that's why you see capital planning over here, more or less, budget over here, but obviously we have to get money somehow to make sure we're taking care of capital planning. What does capital planning mean? Well, there's a lot of things that we need to get done in this village in terms of major infrastructure and building issues, et cetera. And I kind of repeated where all the things listed in last year's budget, where they currently stand in terms of how we saw the schedule working last year and where we are now with respect to them, and any of the changes in terms of the concepts of the money, et cetera. For instance, $4 million DPW garage. Originally, we were hoping we could do a single building approach at Charlton Street. We've gotten numbers, instead of the $4 million, more like $7 or $8 million for a sufficient building at that location from a couple of engineers. We began work with Don Rhodes from LaBerge Engineering, and he came up with the concept of doing a cold storage building at the Malta Avenue, quote-unquote, stump dump site, and then using a much less intensive approach on the Charlton Street site, where we would demolish, remediate anything we needed to do there for replacement of the building at that point in time. And that concept, he believes, with working with our DPW directly on the concept, is probably a $4 to $4.5 million approach, which meets basically the budget we considered hitting here for that number. So if we were to go this process, we would build the cold storage building in this calendar year, and then use that as kind of our operations center temporarily, and then demolish and rebuild over here, and have that done in 2027 and meet our goal of getting that building redone, and maybe have DPW east and west approach there. We met with Roger Crandall of Town of Malta, the highway supervisor there, today, to talk about some of the past friction with that site, what they wouldn't allow us to do, et cetera. He fully backs the idea. There's some cooperation that we can do between our DPW and the highway department there that he's all about doing and promoting to his town. And so I've asked Carla to begin to work with Steve Gottman, who is the town attorney in the town of Malta, to hash maybe a term sheet together of what something could look like, because we would need a variance in that property to do that. But we're trying to get town of Malta to understand reasonably, the laws in New York are set up in a way that would allow us to do whatever we wanted there for governmental purpose, but we would rather be cooperative always in a situation like this, especially with the town of Malta and that situation. So that's a huge amount of money, basically would wipe out our entire fund balance to do this. One thing right there. Fire trucks, we're in a good position with fire trucks right now. Town of Milton, town of Ballston, and with our additional money to protect buildings too right now especially, we are working to make sure that we can get about $1 million in reserve in time for the over $2.5 million engine or ladder aerial truck, excuse me, that won't be here probably until mid-2029. We're hoping to pay down a good amount of that when it arrives, because again, don't know what interest rates are going to do in the meantime. They'll have to be debt taken. We'll never have that much money set aside by that point in time, but at least we'll be in a good position for that situation. There's more trucks to come, obviously, down the line that they'll have to replace, but at least we've gotten to a good point there. Town of Ballston, we appreciate them on their initial leadership on this, and then Town of Milton kind of coming along and working with us on the rest of the way. The water tower renovations and then the maintenance that follows that, you're looking at $1.75 million for all three of them to be renovated. We're a little slower on our John Street renovations because of the whole telecom equipment that is on John Street Tower currently. And so we're working with the carriers to get that removed and get it moved over the next months, and then get the exterior renovations done for John Street Tower. That means we won't touch the other two towers until that is complete. But the good news is that we got our telemetering situations handled that were plaguing us at John Street Tower for communications purposes, alarms and whatnot. We got that handled. So John Street Tower is just waiting for the exterior to be done. We'll have to flush it one more time for that work to get done, because they'll have to go inside to remove some of the bolt areas that they'll kind of saw off internally and all that stuff. So instead, though, of going for another 6% increase, which was originally the trajectory that we were talking about a couple of years ago, with Milltown Center basically on queue now for their first phase, we're talking instead for about a 4.5% gain is what I'm proposing. We assume about 3.25% for annual inflation, so it's about a 1.25% over the normal inflation rate for water and sewer in that situation. And again, I think we're setting aside around $40,000 for water reserve this fiscal year. Or it could have been as high as $60,000. I don't have it right in front of me, but we're looking to go up to about $80,000 additional fiscal year 27. So again, preserving that money because we know we have a maintenance structure we'll have to be paying for down the line. Sidewalks, another big part of this whole thing, the loans and the reimbursements. We still have to work on the loan pool. We're integrating that into the next code discussion we have, and that's going to be over the next few months, so be prepared for sidewalk code discussion. Jen, don't kill your connection there. It is battery because you're not plugged in. Are you? What's up? Yep. Now it is. I think so.
Yeah.
You got it. Technical difficulties, but we got it. So anyways, so loan pool will be part of the sidewalk code. We're looking into how to effectuate that still. But we do have, with the money that the village provides, if we roll over the unused portion and add 40 more thousand to it for next year, we anticipate unused. It'll be 130 plus 40 is 170, 80,000 from CHPE, and $250,000 from the federal government through Congressman Taco's assistance. That's $500,000 set aside for sidewalks in some form or another in the village. And that's a tremendous start right there that we'll have for reimbursement purposes, and we can use some of our fund balance, for loan purposes down the line. And we'll talk more about that another time. Village Hall, $750,000. We've got a lot to do in that building still. Didn't get to do what I wanted to so far on it, at least in this fiscal year. Although there are a couple things I might start getting quoted in terms of that paint job outside and getting that reface done on the retaining wall that needs to get done and the infill. But if it doesn't get done, the projection is to roll over the money for the infill and reface into fiscal year 27. Court. We originally had hoped to take 30 Bath Street and renovate it. That's a large nut to crack with respect to the size of the first floor and how bad this situation is on the first floor. We are beginning to seek out alternative options for that, and we know the value of 30 Bath Street is $260,000 based on the appraisal we had done last year. So if we take the $500,000 that was capital planned for the court renovations and the $260,000, we have about $750,000 that we can invest in the court down the line, and we've got to find that at some point location-wise. That's honestly the toughest part in our village is, as Paul knows, we were talking about this the other day, finding a new location that's viable for a courthouse. So there's some things that we're still looking through right now, and we'll have some updates. I'm enlisting Paul's help on this one, whether he likes it or not. So we'll talk more. Library, we've got the roof still to do. We've got some matching funds still to provide. We did provide money toward the asbestos removal and some of the other costs that came along with the water damage and whatnot last year. And we continued to offer money to protect them. So that's also in the capital plan. The parks are something that we can take for that $150,000 if we do have that much set aside and get moving on Orange Spring Park with the renovations there. And Caitlin and I are going to work with Jeff Anthony at Studio A to get some better pricing on what would need to happen there for the renovations that are planned or proposed, I should say. And we'll have a lot more on that coming up. And also possibly finally painting the pickleball courts so that they're not retaining heat all the time as black asphalt, which is a request that we've had from a few people out there. And if we're going to keep them around for a while, it's probably something we should do. But we're also going to work on grants for other Kelly Park modifications, such as moving the dog park, improving the pavilion, improving the playground beyond some of the equipment that we're going to get from town of Milton, getting some better trail demarcations, getting a pedestrian walking area go in front of the car so you're protected with bollards basically there, and some safety lights / call boxes throughout that area, because that can be a very tricky park if it gets wet in that park. We've seen that happen a couple of times. And pool surface, we're working with Senator Tedisco on pool surface. The floor has needed full replacement renovation for years. We've begun building up a fund internally inside of our budget each year, up to, I think I proposed now $45,000 with money rolling over each year. But if we can get the state to assist on that through Senator Tedisco, I think we could actually get that done in the next year to 2 years finally, instead of doing a patch job on that all the time. So that's the capital plan. That's $12.5 million of stuff that we haven't been able to perform in the village over the years. That kind of, when Bernadette and I first came in 2022, all these things, I think just about every one of those things was sitting there as people's wish lists of things we need to get done in the Village of Ballston Spa. Everything else is normal operations stuff in terms of wages, in terms of departments running day to day, making sure DPW has enough money from us in addition to chips to pave streets. We know asphalt prices are going up this year with petroleum prices as well, but making sure they have enough salt because who knows what the next winter is going to be like, type of situation. Making sure our village clerk and our treasurer departments have what they need ultimately in terms of staffing as well. And I go into that a little bit in this discussion. But also building department. One of the biggest things that we've been asked for, and Anna, you're one of them out there, and so I'm going to call you out on this, is you wanted a new building inspector full-time. And that's something that is being proposed starting January 1st. Not necessarily new, but at least somebody as a full-time building inspector and code enforcement officer, and you also utilizing them as part of the water department, possibly for some excess hours they may have to assist there as well. So, when you go through this, kind of look at it from one stage, an operations standpoint, and on another stage, a capital plan standpoint, because I think that is something that, from what we saw with the Wiswall Park modifications last year and some of the other things that we've done along the way, folks want to see continued improvement, and they'll bring up to you all the time, as you probably have heard yourselves, to Paul and Charlene, the complaints about things like that DPW building, what a joke that is, and it needs to be fixed or demolished or whatever else. And 30 Bass Street's such a nice old building, but it looks horrible right now on the outside and the inside, all things considered, and it's breaking apart, honestly, and other things like that. So that's what the budget looks like, what the mentality was approaching it. Again, the second straight year with this. And if you have any initial questions or thoughts, feel free to jump in with them. But my duty is to present a tentative budget that sort of encompasses the needs of the village and departments and the taxpayers out there to make sure everything's taken care of. So, Flores, any of yours? Sorry for the long ramble. You're fine. You're fine.
Workshop?
Up to you. This is why I always say I made this thing. It's up to you to decide how you want it and who you want and all that stuff.
For me being new, I think
Yep.
it's vital that.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I know I learned a lot in that process. I'm looking, I don't know what everybody's schedules are like, but considering the state budget week, I was like, oh, maybe next Monday, but who knows, that could be a really wonky week. So I don't know if maybe the week of the 6th, we can have a meeting and potentially a second meeting if we feel we need it on the 9th of April, 6th and 9th.
But 1 second. Could do
Sure, it's not
6, 7, 6, 7?
Oh, no.
Hey.
Spring break for the kids, I don't know if anybody.
I don't know, does anybody have any conflicts with spring break? Children?
6th is Easter Monday, basically, so as long as you're good with that.
I definitely would. Sorry, I wasn't thinking.
Wow.
No, I just didn't think about it. I'm like, you still have a meeting. That's what I was thinking.
So Monday, April 6th for an initial set, and then they kind of tell me who you'd like to attend that department head wise in the meantime. I'd like to get you the verbose over the next few days so that, I know. I actually enjoy putting that together because it keeps me reminding everybody where the money was proposed in the first place, because I always get criticized in the office that they never know what we budgeted to exactly. So now I realize I have to put a lot more detail into those lines to make sure they know.
Work for everybody's.
7?
7 o'clock? Sure. So 4, 6, and 7.
I had to get that 7 in there somehow, didn't you?
I wasn't doing it for that reason, but it makes the kids happy. And then same time, if we need it.
If necessary, in the night.
Do you want to just meet in the village office?
Yeah, I think that's the best move, not having to impose on this. Okay. And we'll put out notices for meetings on 4, 6, and 4, 9 if necessary. Yeah. I'm going to open up people lunch tomorrow, just recognized. Yeah, thanks, guys. 4 minutes, actually. Yeah. Any other new business that I didn't hear about that should have been added or anything like that? Okay, public comment on any issue for 3 minutes. Again, if you're on Zoom, this will be the time to raise your hand if you would like to talk about any issue for 3 minutes. And if anybody in the hall would like to speak, which I see a hand in the back, is that Marilyn, I think? Go ahead.
Marilyn Stevenson, 45 West High Street. Just to let everybody know, the Ballston Spa House and Garden Club is having their 16th annual plant sale The proceeds from the sale supports the garden club's local youth programs and the public gardens that we maintain in the village of Ballston Spa. That's the Tedisco Trail, the Iron Spring Garden, the Pink Garden at the library, and the Pollinator Garden behind the library. Orders are due by Thursday, May 14th, and pickup will be Thursday, May 21st. Mary and John Tozier are running the plant sale again this year. They are club members that live off of Laurel Lane. And we offer geraniums, wave petunias, and herbs. All pots are $5 each. And again, as we have in years past, the flyer and the order form will be available at the library and also throughout the village. And if I could give this to the clerk for the meeting minutes, thank you. Yes.
Okay, next. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Earl Eaton, 185 Paisley Road. I'd just like to thank the Village of Ballston Spa for their support for the Ballston Area Senior Center. Thank you, Trustee Price Bush, for mentioning our trips. We have one going to Howe Caverns tomorrow, another one going to Beardsley Castle next month. It's already been planned and covered. So we got a lot of stuff we do there. We have picking sessions twice a month. We have dances. We got all kinds of stuff. So if you're a senior, 55 years or older, come on down. We have our meetings every Thursday, 12:30. So thank you very much.
It'll be here sooner than you.
Oh, you know. I've got a month until I hit 50. Can we go there first and then we'll talk about 55, okay? I used to like you, Charlene. Yeah, but I see a hand actually on Zoom too. Okay. I got you.
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street. The mayor does not speak only as a private person, whether responding to residents on official channels or in personal posts regarding village matters. He speaks as the head of our government and presiding officer of this board. When a resident raises concerns about policy, billing, or governance, it's not a personal attack, it's a civic participation. This is exactly what is expected of taxpayers in a small community. When the mayor's response is to attack or discredit the resident, rather than address the substance, that behavior does not exist in a vacuum. It reflects on every member of this board and on the professional advice you receive. You as trustees hold the majority. You approve the laws, you control the agenda, you oversee the council. The village attorney's client is not any single official. It's the village as an institution. The attorney's role is to protect the integrity of the village's actions, not to rationalize personal retaliation against those who raise uncomfortable issues. The Times Union and the Daily Gazette have both criticized how these issues are handled and called for a responsible response. It's not bias or group hysteria. It's an independent call for action. The question for this board is, how will you respond? By dismissing this as politics, or by treating it as a serious warning about transparency and accountability? You each took an oath to serve the interests of the village as a whole, and that includes protecting residents' ability to speak, criticize, and question whether the board is following its own rules. You do not have to agree, but you do have a duty to insist that disagreements remain focused on facts, law, and policy, rather than on personal smears or intimidation. This community calls itself a village of friends, and friends do not stand by in silence while bad choices are made in their name. Friends do not let friends use public office to attack neighbors who raise legitimate concerns, and friends speak up to help each other correct course. I'm asking each trustee on the record, if you disagree with the mayor's pattern of personal attacks, say so and act accordingly. If you remain silent tonight, you're endorsing that behavior, ignoring this question, and inviting further unproductive outcomes that look nothing like a true village of friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
Sarah Hernandez again. Thanks, Patty. I just wanted to say thank you for having the meeting the other night about Bath Street. And I know we're limited on large facilities. I noticed a lot of people having a hard time hearing there. And I know it's, again, hard to find a spot. I know there was a gentleman who was in the audience who couldn't hear what was being said to respond to it. I don't know if there's somewhere better that we could brainstorm to come up with something that's less noise reducing for people who do have hearing impairments. And to kind of talk about 125 Bath Street some more. They talked about, I think this is a thing for the whole village to be able to understand, the crumbling blacktop, the surface issue, the 3 to 4 story buildings. They require massive, deep set concrete foundations. And I brought that up to the developer. And I talked about that's in a 100-year floodplain. And they say it won't be any issue, but it's going down quite far to be able to support the 3 to 4 story structure that they want to do. And how is that going to impact the existing homes? Has CT Mail done a no-rise certification that specifically accounts for the volume of these buildings, not just the speed of the runoff, the volume in the ground. When the water comes, how is that going to impact the neighboring homes? How is it going to impact just the surrounding area? It is in the lowest area in the village. Soil contamination, as I brought up, it's been since 2008 when they've been asking, thank you for sharing that information, for extensions, and I get that there's different property owners, but it's been since 2008. Digging risked the entire watershed. The Gordon Creek flows into the Paneros, which then flows into Saratoga Lake. Right now, what they had to do was a 2-foot soil cap. Someone asked about what the soil cap was. It was a 2-foot soil cap from the information that I looked at. For certification of compliance, the deep excavation for 168 units will breach that cap. Toxins can wash into the Gordon Creek, which will ultimately settle into Saratoga Lake. Is the village thinking about how that's going to impact the surrounding waterways, surrounding towns, other people who live on the lake, and how that's going to impact the lake itself and recreation? Again, bringing in new students, it's going to bring in new students. The school district is already in a financial situation. They have a tightening budget through 2029. They keep saying the enrollment's declining, but their special education population grew, I believe it was about 4%, which cost the district more money to educate those students. They need more resources. Also, we're talking about more kids that will probably be walking to Malta Ave. I know there's already plenty of
You're 3
concerns
minutes.
about the high school.
Sorry.
Is that it?
That is, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I actually gave you 10 extra. Sorry. Anybody else? We'll go Liz, then other Zoom.
Liz Cormos, 89 High. Back in February, I think it was February 23rd meeting, there was a discussion about the proposed zoning code. And then there was a discussion on the board about not referring it over to the county at this point, but to taking a relook at it and putting it back in front of the public, for more comments, because it basically, the conclusion was that the board, from what I could understand, didn't think it was done and needed more work. Haven't heard a thing about it. Hasn't been anything put on the web or the public review. Hasn't been anything discussed in the meetings. Where does it stand? Thank you.
Actually, it was at the last meeting. I stated the 3-week period did not start, and our clock did not start at that point until we did get it up on the website. We've been a little budget heavy right now in Village Hall, so this week I have a laundry list of items to go through, and that is one of them, indeed. So, you said Zoom? Can't see, what is that? Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, team. My name is Courtney Ellis, 68 Chapman Street, Ballston Spa, New York. I just wanted to thank the trustees so much for the report out on the community liaison roles. Much appreciated. We often have really heavy topics here, and I think the connection back to community is wonderful. I wanted to raise awareness and attention around Ballston Area Community Center. Was not mentioned in the reports, but many of you might know we suffered a consequential flood on Super Bowl Sunday. Programs had to be canceled for 6 weeks, but the team was able to set us up and partner with the district to ensure UPK continuation. We provided an environment ready for BACC prior to the center reopening, but today students got to return to their classrooms fully restored, help of Ballston Spa, carpet and tile, a lot of great community effort to put into this project. So I just want to thank the staff, the trustees for the relentless efforts around continuity, the district to make sure that we were able to return to programming, and a huge kudos to the individuals on the ground for restoring the center back to fighting strength. Also, I just wanted to mention that we are still waiting to hear from Trustee Dunkelbarger for our unrelated update about the center. So super happy to work with you around that information, and we want to work for resolution together. So again, thank you so much for putting the community at the forefront. We are so excited to continue our partnership.
I thought I saw your hand over there. Go ahead if you want to say. Did you?
I'll get in touch with you this week.
There you go. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. Sorry about that.
Okay. Excuse me. Thank you. Mike Iacolucci, 3 Encore Drive. Over the last several years, I've mentioned a few times, that I personally do not think it's appropriate to try to govern through social media. I do not look at social media myself. I hear about some things that are posted on social media. At the national level, over the last 10 years, there has been an increasing tendency to attack, harass, and insult people through social media. Here in the Village of Friends, I would hope that regardless of what position a person might take on a policy issue, that person would be exempt from personal attacks and harassment and insults. So I implore all of you, please, and everyone who uses social media, to think about what you're writing and try to refrain from attacking and insulting individuals. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And that works both ways, don't forget. Who else? Okay. Chris, go ahead.
Chris Buke, 6 Kaling Drive. I just wanted to thank this board again. We heard how would you respond past tonight, and I think you responded really well, considering that for at least 2 meetings you were without an executive. I think you've done well as liaisons. We just heard that report even tonight from someone giving that comment. So again, great job. You really stepped into quite a bit this year. Phenomenal job. As for Mayor Rossi, welcome back. I just want to point out a few things here. You hear a lot of negativity. You hear a lot of finger pointing and everything else. It seems like it was a while ago, but it really wasn't that long ago when I can remember during COVID, every single one of our children were sitting in school all day long, 8 hours a day with masks on their face, not allowed to take them off. We could go to a restaurant, we could eat, we could take it off. Our kids were not able to. Some of us joined that fight as school boards to just plead with the school to use some common sense and, last some sort of exemption. I want to thank you, Mayor Rossi, because I do remember during those times you did show up to a couple school board meetings, whether it was just to be in the crowd listening, whether it was to speak on behalf of some of those students, to speak on behalf of the school. Social media, we hear a lot about that. I do think it's toxic in many ways. I tend to stay off of it, but I can remember you using social media to highlight our local teams, to highlight young kids that for a good solid year, they weren't even allowed to show their faces, yet you put them on a platform, on a pedestal. You made them feel worthwhile again. You made them feel like something. And that is the future of this village, are our children. And I know there was a question asked why in the State of the Village you showed a cheering crowd and then all our football players that showed up, most of them, none of them alive during 9/11, and yet they all showed up at the 9/11 ceremony. Again, those are our future leaders. Those are future participants in this village and in this community. I grew up in Plattsburgh, and many of my friends I grew up with are in the police department, public works, sitting on the council. They're the teachers, they're the lawyers. They come back and they want to stay in a community where they feel valued. They felt valued as kids. So I want to thank you for that. I will always remember you for that. Do I always agree with you? No, but I have a trustee up here I disagree with on a daily basis. Whether or not I can go back into my parking space.
Watch it, you have to go home with me tonight.
True. And I'm under no duress to say that. Again, I'd like to just highlight out the positive, and again, and that goes to all of you as a board as well. So thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else? Yes.
Melissa Taylor, 4 Creekview Court, Milton. At the March 9th Village Board meeting, I placed my trust in this board and in the public comment process. I came forward in good faith to share serious concerns about the mayor's conduct, believing it would lead to accountability and a return to reasonableness in this so-called Village of Friends. Instead, Mayor Rossi escalated the situation. Despite having proof, Mayor Rossi was put on notice approximately a year ago that a stalking allegation he repeated about me was false. He chose to amplify that allegation again. He added additional claims, including that some mysterious caller to Village Hall was me, and that I harassed my neighbor, which are untrue claims. I have served this community successfully and without incident for decades as an educator and youth leader. The mayor's allegations were spread through his official and personal platforms and further recirculated to an even larger community audience. This has caused significant damage to my reputation, both professionally and personally. The mayor has ignored my request to correct these claims, even after I shared that I have evidence they are untrue, and asked him several times to back up his claims, which he didn't. This has impacted my family, my co-workers, the parents of the children entrusted to my care. But what makes this even more disturbing for me, while presenting himself as fearful of me, the mayor publicly invited discussion on social media about obtaining a gun to protect himself. Regardless of how that was intended, it was reckless, inappropriate, and deeply troubling conduct from an elected official. At the last meeting, I came before this board hoping to stop unethical behavior. Instead, the situation has escalated to a point that raises serious concerns about potential liability for the village. When the mayor speaks in this capacity, it reflects on this governing body, all of you. Your silence does not read as neutrality.
10 seconds.
It reads as an endorsement of his words and actions. A failure to act against this behavior, especially in the face of known false allegations, is not consistent with your oath of office.
Melissa.
So I ask again tonight,
Your time's expired, Melissa.
will you please uphold your oath of office? and
Melissa,
take
your time is
action?
expired. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Ooh, time for other business, including but not limited to board response public comment.
I actually do have a statement to make.
Go ahead.
This is actually not about that. This is something personal to me, something I wish I had kind of maybe spoke up on a couple weeks ago, because just seeing a few comments that were made at the last tannery presentation meeting kind of disturbed me. So I put together just a little statement, like I said, that is kind of personal to me. So a few meetings ago, a speaker mentioned they didn't know who the new trustees were. So let me introduce myself. I moved to the greater Boston Spa area when I was pregnant with my 4th child, my now 16-year-old son, not that one. My family and I were lucky enough to build our home right here in the village in 2018. Today, I run a successful virtual teaching business. I serve as the director of education at a local museum, and I serve you here on this board. I am proud of the life I've built, but I'm even more defined by where I started. My story wasn't always this way. I grew up dirt poor. There were times my family lived on other people's couches because we had nowhere else to go. I've lived in homes that were legally condemnable. Eventually, my family moved into low-income housing, the projects, which at that time was the nicest, safest place I had ever lived. It gave a child the stability she needed to eventually become the woman before you today. This brings me to the ethics lectures we hear in this room every meeting. There is a select group of loud individuals who stand at that podium and lecture this board on integrity, yet some of these same voices have been online and at those meetings lately making disgusting, unwelcoming comments about the tannery project and the type of people who might live there. Talked a lot about social media tonight. These are part of the comments I'm talking about. We can add that to the list. So let's be very clear about what and who we are talking about. You are talking about workforce development housing. You are talking about the teachers starting their careers, the healthcare workers caring for our seniors, and the people who keep our local businesses running. When you use your platform to suggest that these neighbors are a threat to our village, you aren't being ethical, you are being elitist. As I've read and listened to some of these comments, I have to ask, if that child version of me, that girl who had a rough start to life, if she showed up in our village today, would she be accepted by you? Or would you be online suggesting she was a detriment to your neighborhood? No, you don't get to claim the moral high ground while closing doors to those working to create a better life for themselves here. We call ourselves the Village of Friends. We've obviously got a lot of work to do on that, right? That's not just a slogan for a sign, it's a standard we have to live up to. A real friend doesn't check your bank account before they let you in the door. So I want it on the record that these exclusionary, negative voices do not represent the values of this board, and they do not represent the heart of Boston Spa. Our home is a village for everyone. The millionaires trying to start businesses here, the middle-class families like mine, and certainly to all of those hardworking folks just trying to get by too. All right? Period. Now, going back to the drama, I think everybody needs to stop what's being said because I'm seeing a lot from folks. Non-stop harassment to the fact that I've had to get off social media. I've had comments just saying, good job, Mayor, attacked by members of this community. It needs to stop. It does need to stop. All right? It needs to stop. Don't react. Everyone else needs to stop too. It's non-stop harassment. Some of the stuff, it's threatening, it's cruel. When someone goes out on leave because they're not well, to sit there and then talk about how it's fake, that they're making it up, it's disgusting. If you want to get up here and lecture to us on how we need to behave and how we should respond, make sure you have a clean slate. Maybe we'll take you a bit more seriously.
Unbelievable. Hold them accountable.
I'm not going to hold someone accountable for what they're doing on their personal page.
No. Paul, anything on your end?
Yeah, you. Exactly.
Hey,
Folks?
guys, stop, please.
Folks?
Everyone, please stop.
All of you, please. Thank you. Paul, anything?
Nothing tonight.
Mary?
No, I'd like to thank Charlene for your comments.
It's very just hurtful to see someone that we would discourage people from moving into our community because they may not make a certain amount of money.
I'm good. Thank you.
All right, folks. Okay, conversation for that later, or time for it. I just want to say this. Mike, I think it was Mike, it may have been Keith actually, and I think maybe he had some similar comments, but not identical to it. I don't know how the assumption gets made that somebody is a single identity in their entire life. And I say this as a gay man because the identity scenario that goes with that is something that I've always really struggled with, in that people think I need to be identified by that label or who that part of who I am as my primary label. And what makes me very different, and why some people can't understand how I can be X, Y, Z, A, B, and C all in the same person, is that at the end of the day, I'm a human being first. I'm a family person first. I live for my family. I'm a Catholic up on that list. I'm a mayor somewhere in that list. I'm a football commentator somewhere in that list. I'm somebody that would like to have a relationship and a family at some point of my own on that list at some point in my life. Excuse me. You all had your chance. My turn tonight for a second. And the notion that because my title mayor is what it is, means I'm 24/7 the mayor of Ballston Spa in every aspect of my life, and I represent this village in everything I do at every juncture. If that were the case and we applied that to everybody's job in this world, we'd all be fired probably for our lives and being judged at everything we do. At the end of the day, I have a right to feel in my personal life threatened, concerned for my family. I have a right to go and broadcast the game and not have to be considered mayor and vice versa in the roles that I do. And I think this notion that I've taken this job at $7,700 a year and propose not to get a raise. Tell Ben, I'm still proposing that even when he's not here. But the notion that, I have sacrificed every aspect of my life, including my private life and personal life, is poppycock, honestly. And
Guys, everybody, I don't care what side you're on, please, just.
it shouldn't even be about sides.
Well,
this is,
I'm talking about
I get
back
it.
and forth.
I get it.
Disrupt.
I get it. But it's a reality here that when I took office, I separated my life multiple ways to make sure that this type of situation wouldn't even happen. Because cell phone, personal life, business life in terms of the mayor. Okay, emails, all separate. Personal email, legal profession email, mayor email. Everything has been separated in my life to protect that aspect of it. And so when I push something on my personal page out of a concern to my friends and my family, I am not doing it as Mayor Frank Rossi. I'm doing it as Frank Rossi, your friend, your family member. And I'm telling you something because I need some advice, folks, out there when I do it in that realm. And so this notion isn't applicable, first off. And second off, it's insulting. It is insulting. And I will state what I stated in an email today to Melissa, which was essentially, if that's not true, what I just said, if I am mayor and person Frank Rossi all in one all the time, and I don't have a right to a personal life, then in 2019, she was warned not to contact Gina Morosi or me again in 2019. And so if she's circumventing that request, excuse me, ma'am, this is 4 times. Thank you. She's circumventing that situation or that request by the idea, the mayor and Frank Rossi at all times is the same thing no matter what. Then I would go find a power restraining order because a lot of people told me to do so the last few weeks. But no, I believe that that's not the case, and why I do withstand it year after year, comment after comment on Facebook. Okay? That's the reality of it. When I took mayor position, when I'm acting as mayor, I have to take that, and I get that. But on the flip side, I have a right to be Frank Rossi at certain points and times in my life. I do. And I did that for a month to breathe because I needed to. And for those of you that respected that fact, Mike, you were one who came in the office and actually checked on me or said that you were glad I was back or feeling better, and I appreciate that. I honestly do, Mike. And I wish we could get along better, you and I, sometimes, because I actually see eye to eye with you on a lot of things, I think, more so than we realize. I think politics suck in small village scenarios, and when you reduce it down to it, there are a lot of your Democratic colleagues and friends that I actually am friends with because we all do agree on certain aspects of it. I really do believe that. I just want to be honest there about it. But I appreciate that you kind of accepted that I needed to be me for a little bit and not the mayor for a little bit in that respect. That's what happens in these situations. Because, look, folks, under my mayor banner, you've called me, not you, everybody, but some of you out there have called me a pedophile for some of the things that Chris complimented me on. That's the ugliness of some of this job. Or that, you know, I'm fake, I'm horrible, I'm developer this, I'm, corrupt, unethical, this, that, and the other thing. And at the end of the day, I've sat here for the last 4 years, as of April 4th, with you, Bernadette, trying to achieve a better village in so many different ways, hence the capital plan that I went through line by line. And I know it's boring to a degree, and I drone on about certain things, but it's so important to me, that aspect of it, because when we took office, the question was, can you get these things done? And we learned real early on the challenges trying to get all these things done, because, yeah, we got a nice fund balance, but it ain't going to take care of everything here. And we devised the concept to do it respectfully to our taxpayers at the end of the day. And Karen, you and I can disagree about some of that, but I think you'd also appreciate the fact that we've set up some guide rails on this too, with the notion of what you talked about, okay? We did, even in the, if you read the whole thing, you'll see what I mean by that, the executive summary especially. But that's the stuff that we set out to do here. And foil after foil for meaningless stuff comes in. And lawsuit, their lawsuit now comes in. And at the end of the day, when you ask the average citizen of this village what means something to them, or what is important, it's, is my water going to run in the morning? Am I going to be able to walk through a park safely and walk down my street safely? Am I going to be able to enjoy and appreciate my community and find businesses that I enjoy and stay in this place I've invested a lot of money and time into? All the other chatter and static, honestly, is unproductive. And for anybody that sits here and says they care about their community, I would ask you to listen to that one more time. All that static is unproductive to what the root issue is that we are asked to take care of every day. That's my job as mayor. My job as Frank Rossi is to do a lot of other things in life, not just be mayor, but I've given a good chunk of that aspect of my life to this process of being mayor for 4 years. And I don't appreciate, I truly don't, some of the rhetoric that comes out. And look, I answered emails about this very topic today, as the board saw. You were all on it. And that's the mayor side of it at the end of the day. If Frank Rossi personally had a side of it, obviously I'd have a lot more to say about the specifics of that comment. I'm not going to. It doesn't belong here. And that's my point right now. Can I get a motion that the vouchers be audited and the meeting be adjourned at 8:51 p.m.?
I'll make that motion.
I think it was Trustee Price Bush and Trustee Fandesa. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everybody have a good night, and please stop fighting in the back of the room. Please exit quietly. Guys. Guys,
Because you're ridiculous. You're not even